Hey, welcome back. We're going to start our chapter 2 or unit 2, however you want to think about it, where we're talking about equations and expressions and working. And so we're going to start with expressions. And the first thing we're going to do is when we're working with expressions, we have to understand what is called order of operations. And what that means is that's the order in which we complete operations. And we have this so that everything is done uniformly, so that given a problem, we all come up with the same answer and not different answers. So you may have seen problems on social media where it asks you, well, which one's the correct answer? What answer do you get and which one's correct? And all it is it comes down to order of operations. And when people mix up their order of operations, they end up getting different answers. So what is the order of operations? Well, this is our order in which we're doing things, and it starts with, normally we say parentheses because that's most of the time what we see. But really what the parentheses represent is it's just a grouping symbol. So we're going to start with anything that's grouping operations. And so that could be things like parentheses. That could be brackets. That could be the little fancy curly brackets. It actually can mean the fraction bar. If I have operations going on in the numerator and or the denominator, I have to complete the operations in the numerator and denominator before I can go into doing the division. And so that's what we start with is our parentheses, otherwise known as our grouping symbols. After that, we look, if we have none of those, or after we complete the operations within those, then we go to exponents and we evaluate all exponents. And just a reminder, exponents are things like 3 cubed, which is 3 times 3 times 3, right? Exponents is just repeated multiplication. And so 3 times 3 times 3 is 27, because 3 times 3 is 9, and then 9 times 3 is 27. So I just want to remind you, exponents deals with multiplication, but I'm not doing 3 times 3. I'm doing 3. I'm not doing, well, that was a little confusing. I'm not doing this base times the exponent. I'm not doing 3 times 3. I'm doing 3 times 3 times 3. So the exponent is how many times I'm multiplying it by itself. So after we've evaluated everything in the parentheses and then we've evaluated our exponents from there, this is where we multiply and divide, and they happen at the same time from left to right. And so what I mean by they happen at the same time is as I'm looking at my expression from left to right, whatever comes first, like if I just do it in the order that it comes from left to right. So if division comes before multiplication, that's okay. I'm going to divide and then I'll multiply. I just have to make sure that it happens, again, from left to right. And then it's the same thing for add and subtract. After I do my multiplication and division, then I'm going to do my adding and subtracting. And again, that happens from left to right. It doesn't matter if the subtraction comes before the addition, as long as we're doing them at the same time from left, or at the same time from left to right. You may also hear this called PEMDAS, and sometimes I will refer to it as PEMDAS, and that's just that first letter of each operation, right? Parentheses, exponents, multiply, divide, add, subtract. And so if you hear the term PEMDAS, it's just representing order of operations. So we're going to get into some examples here. So when we talk about this, we're either going to call it evaluate or simplify. Either one, it means the same thing. And so again, we're going to, using our PEMDAS, right? I'm going to start looking for parentheses, and I'm going to do the operation within the parentheses. Now, if there's multiple operations within the parentheses, then I do order of operations within my parentheses, the same that I would do any other order. So I'm going to look in my parentheses. I don't have any exponents within the parentheses. There's no multiplication or division, so we're just going to go straight to the subtraction. And so we're going to do 6 minus 2, which is 4. So I end up with 4 cubed divided by 2. And again, that was me taking care of the grouping symbol. And in this case, that means that I subtracted. So that's the first thing that I did. After this, we've done our grouping symbol. Now I'm going to go to exponents. I'm going to look to see if I have any exponents. I do. I have 4 cubed. And so I'm going to do my exponents. And so 4 cubed is the same as 4 times 4 times 4. And 4 times 4 is 16, and 16 times 4 equals 64. So 4 cubed is 64. So that's what I write next, 64 divided by 2. And then we multiply divide from left to right. Well, there's only division left, so we're going to multiply divide, and our answer is 32. Now you guys don't have to write everything off to the side, but I'm writing it so that you know what I'm doing. Like, how did I get from one step to the next step? And so that's what the words on the side are for. All right, so now we're going to move into example 2. Now on this one, when I go to look for my grouping symbol, it's not parentheses, but again, because I've got a fraction, which represents division, I have to do what is on top before I can worry about the actual dividing of the numerator by the denominator. And so this actually becomes its own grouping. And so notice that we have 2 operations within our grouping. So our first thing we're going to do is we're going to look at our grouping, which I've gone ahead and put parentheses on the top of our fraction for this. Now, the first thing I'm going to do within that is my exponent. Right? So, because exponents come before subtraction. And so 2 to the 4th is equal to 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. And so that's the same as 4 times 4, which is 16. So 2 to the 4th is 16 minus 1 divided by 5. Now, technically that 16 minus 1 is still grouping. So I'm still working on that grouping operator. And I'm going to have, for this one, we're going to be subtracting. And so then 16 minus 1 equals 15. And so then that's now 15 divided by 5. And so our last step is to look at the multiplication division. There is no multiplying. It's just division. So 15 divided by 5 is 3. And again, just remember, fractions are a representation of division. So when we see a fraction, that's basically a division operator. All right, our last example is the following. We have 5 times 7 minus 4 squared divided by 2. Notice there are no grouping symbols on this one. So when it comes to PEMDAS, I don't need to worry, and I'll just skip over the P, the parentheses, because there's no grouping. So then I'm going to look for exponents, and that's going to be my first step, is exponents. And so our exponent is here. It's the 4 squared, and so we're going to do 5 times 7 minus, and then 4 squared is 16. So 5 times 7 minus 16 divided by 2. After I've done my exponents, then I need to look, so I've done my exponents. Now I'm going to do multiplication and division, and remember they happen at the same time from left to right. So as I look at this, I have 5 times 7, so that's going to be 35, minus, and then we have 16 divided by 2. And I'm actually going to do that 16 divided by 2 before I do subtraction, because multiplication and division happen before adding and subtracting. So 16 divided by 2 is 8. And so that was the multiply divide step. And then from here, we'll do our add subtract. And that's just going to be 35 minus 8, which equals 27. And that is how order of operations work. If we were to do things out of order, then what we would find is that we would get completely different answers. And that's normally, like on this one, normally the most common mistake is people will just do all operations from left to right. And so they would do 5 times 7 and then subtract the 16 and then divide by 2. And so they forget the order, the proper order in which to do things. So this really should be mostly review, and so I hope this was a good refresher, and I will see you in class to do more practice problems. Until then.